Jonathan Tsipis, longtime friend. Great to see you in the SoCon, man. Welcome. How's it
Thank you.
going?
No, it's good. It brings me back to the past. At North Carolina Greensboro, so it's been a little coverage in between. Obviously, happy to stay on the women's side and excited for the opportunity here at Western Carolina.
Well, you've been a longtime head coach at multiple places. You've had success in other places that you've been. You've been a longtime assistant coach. You filled every role you could possibly fill. You mentioned the UNCG as a beginning part of your career. What is special to you about the SoCon?
Yeah, it's just I think people don't realize the history of the Southern Conference. At one point, obviously way before you played, Debbie, it was the precursor to the Atlantic Coast Conference,
Right.
and I think it's changed as far as some of the teams, but that doesn't take away from the history of so many great players, both on the men's side and on the women's side, and we had a great one here on the men's side, and Kevin Martin, that was the leading scorer in the SoCon when there was another guy who could shoot it pretty well named Steph Curry in the league at the same time at Davidson. So, it's been a place where so many coaches have gotten their start. And I'm really honored to have the opportunity to lead a program in the Southern Conference.
Well, you mentioned it. I mean, I think this is an excellent coaches league. You're going to get a lot of players that are maybe not the tallest or the longest or the fastest, but you're going to get very skilled, very athletic players that just play the game at a little bit of a smaller level in terms of size, not in small in game. That's not what I mean. You've experienced so many different power leagues. You've been around the best. You've been around championship culture. What is it about this league that makes it such a good coaches league?
Well, I think you have coaches from a lot of different backgrounds. You have coaches that have been successful, as you talked about as assistants. You've had coaches that have been here a little bit longer period of time. You have newer coaches who are taking over programs for the first time. So you just see a lot of different styles. You see, people bringing players over. Obviously, just go and see the job Coach Poppy did at Chattanooga the last 2 years
Right.
on a program that's obviously been very, very good in the Southern Conference. So I think that's the exciting, part to me is you get to see, and even being in the Big East the last 2 years was so different from my first run in the Big East, from having a Creighton in there full time to see, Denise Dillon take over Villanova and play in a different way than Coach Beretta played. So I think that is exciting. On the women's side, I don't have as much experience of going head to head against programs from the Southern Conference, but you've just always had that eye on seeing how the different teams have done so well and what those coaches have gone on to, not necessarily just going on to become head coaches at bigger conferences, but somebody like Jackie Smith Carson, who's gone on to a leadership position in the ACC. So again, it's the biggest thing for me is we're trying to grow young women in this game to be successful no matter what they do when they leave here. And definitely you see that in the Southern Conference.
Jonathan, I've known you for a long time. I've watched you as a part of several different journeys. This is a significant rebuild at Western Carolina, and you knew it when you took it. How's it going?
It's good. I think in the spring you wanted to try to make sure you have the right people that were going to stay on board for our vision. And our roster went down a few and then gained a couple. I've been blessed with having a roster that has players from a lot of different backgrounds. And so I think the willingness of the ones that wanted to be here to do things in a different way, I've been really, really encouraged with. The administrative support we've had from Alex Gary and his whole senior staff to have our whole group here the entire summer to try to build that, culture we're talking about in chemistry. So I think they understand it. We take it day by day, and, a lot of coaches speak, but, I love the fact that they've wanted to learn a different way. I think especially with some people who this is their last opportunity, whether it's, somebody like Chelsea Wooten, who's in her fourth year, or somebody's like Zoe Cruz, who's a fifth-year senior. They very much could look at it and say, hey, we're just going to do it, or I can go in a different direction. And when you have that leadership, from your experienced players, and you have some younger players that have some success that have bought in, I think that's helped us continue to move things in the right direction.
Jonathan, this is a preview show, and because we're doing this before the season starts, there could be some significant challenges due to the weather and the situation in the western part of North Carolina and what you've had to experience with your team. Not to make it timely as for today, but just your vision for what you think is coming down the road the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months with your school, with the school being closed, with you trying to, you already had a challenge to rebuild. Now you're going to have some challenges that are really life-threatening challenges. What is the mindset there for you and your family?
Yeah, I think the first step was everybody's safety, right? And making sure you had simple things like shelter, water, food. And again, basketball gets put on the back burner for a few days. And, we were 2 days in. Thursday was an off day, and we end up having Thursday through Sunday canceled. We'll be able to get back on track with that. I'm not concerned. I think to me was, when we were allowed to practice, was it the right thing to do? Is it the right thing? Luckily our players are not a concern from the travel standpoint. So, without having classes this week, again, how can you help from the mental wellness, I think, of the team? And to me, it was, yeah, I'd love to practice. I want to make sure they want to practice and they want to be there and help that. So they're just not, I think that they got a little bit of stir crazy over the weekend. So I think that was the nice part of having them over to the house was, they didn't just stay at our house. They went across the street to the clubhouse where there's a pool, and our men's coach lives 2 houses down, and they went and checked in on him and saw checked to see how he and his family were doing. So I think it's just what I've seen in the community here at Western. That's how it's been even way before we ever had this challenge. It's a close knit community that wants to help each other. So I think from the basketball perspective, we're trying to just get through this phase of practice now till we get to when our first game is supposed to be. I think we're really lucky when we see the devastation in Asheville and even some of the smaller schools, in Western North Carolina. We're pretty lucky. We didn't have any damage with our facilities, in the dormitories or dining halls or even the places that our players lived that they can't get out from certain places. There was a little bit of touch and go on a couple of the places, just not being able to get to one of our players for a day or so, but we were able to stay in contact with her and able to get her there. So, for us, I think we still look at that plan of trying to be in preparation that it could change based on some of our opponents, but they have access to the gym. We have access to be together. And I think they're still staying on top of their academics. Not sure again how exactly this will play out, after Friday when they make a decision what we'll do classes wise. But it's a huge as we need to talk about about the mental health side of things of being able to have them in a great frame of mind to be as successful, not just in basketball, but as they continue academically, and even the socialization, I think is really, really amazing. I think it was fun to see Friday night to drive around to just check on our players, to just see, old school interactions, right? Nobody could get on Wi-Fi. Nobody could get on social media, and people actually had to talk to each other in person. So I think that was a good thing.
It feels a little out of place to ask you anything about basketball or strategy with what you're dealing with, which is a much higher purpose, and probably why you've been put in this path in the first place, Jonathan, because I know you're a very faithful guy, and I know you've been at Jesuit places where service is the most important quality. All the places that you've been, you'd like to think that they would prepare you for some sort of crisis or some adversity that you might face. What is the most important thing that you want to have for a takeaway for your players when it comes to, dealing and managing with all the things that you have coming down the road?
Yeah, I just think that their ability to respond, and what life throws at you. And this, you hope the game of basketball, and you and I've talked about this, it teaches so many great lessons. But having something like that, I think one of the things our staff talked about is there's a little bit of like the rest of the world is operating as normal. And I feel like the last time personally, I went through something like this, it was COVID, right? And everybody was going through the same thing. Is I think an appreciation, it is, it's one of our core values. And we talk about that. And I think that appreciation of what we have, it might be not what we're normally used to doing on a day-to-day basis, but, we talked about it yesterday when we got back on the practice floor of just even having the ability to practice. There are a lot of schools in our geographic area that aren't able to do that and to take advantage and have the joy in that. Again, it goes back to can they be able to understand that appreciation and have that appreciation with each other. They've done a great job. We've tried to connect with parents to make sure, again, I think that's a huge part of our, vision here is it's a partnership, and we're here trying to be, in that partnership with parents to help their daughter get to that. And sometimes just that text or that phone call to make any of that they've asked us to do to just reassure them. We had people that wanted to rush here. At times we had to say, we don't know outside of our small bubble what's going on, even safety wise. But I think I think for this week, it's just been, hey, can we get in a routine? Can you make sure that you're doing the things that you normally, are you sleeping okay? Do you have, you have a concern of what might happen next? For us, it's, hey, let's go day by day, get through this week, and we'll continue to be resilient on what comes in front of us.
As always, my friend, great perspective on where basketball fits in the total well-being for a student athlete. We wish you well, and you're going to be a story that is going to be keenly kept an eye on, because it's going to be really interesting to see how your team responds, as you say. Jonathan Tsipis, the new head coach, first-year head coach at Western Carolina. Thank you so much for being with us on the preview show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Debbie.
Tyja Beans and Chelsea Wooten from Western Carolina. Ladies, how's it going?
It's going good so far.
Yeah, it's going.
Yeah.
It's going, especially after this weekend.
Yes, it's going good now.
It's going. Yeah, it's going good now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know you're referencing Helene, the storm that rocked the western part of North Carolina. This is a preview show about basketball, but this is a story that is much more important than basketball. How are you guys managing?
Honestly, we're doing good, and it's so funny because of course, like we didn't have any service to be able to contact anybody, but once we realized like Wi-Fi was down, service was down, like we automatically knew to go to like our teammates' house, and we all just like gradually like ended up there throughout the day. Like the whole team was there, and obviously like we couldn't contact each other,
Right.
but we found a way to just team bond, bonding and everything. We ended up hanging out with like men's basketball and volleyball like one night, because like it's hard. It's really hard, especially not being able to communicate with our families and like letting them know that we're okay. So like we had to like take our minds off of it some way, and we was able to do it like that.
Taja, are you feeling the same way about that?
Yes, honestly, we played a lot of board games. We cooked together. We had fun together. Honestly, we watched a little bit of the movies that we could download while we were on Wi-Fi, and just from there, we just team bonded. That's all we could really do.
You want to give it the proper context, because it is the unknown, right? We don't know all the things that are coming. When you start thinking about what you have coming up next in your preparation for schoolwork and your preparation for basketball, what do you think are the most important things to keep in perspective right now?
Honestly, just really just like keeping like an open mind. Like obviously like we don't have control of everything. So like your mental part and your mental health and all that is like the stepping stone. So like once you get everybody's mental correct, then we can physically go through, okay, we have this and we have this due, or we have this like practice wise. So like once everybody is mentally okay, then like I think it's a lot easier to start bringing in, okay, classwork, let's get back on this once we get Wi-Fi. And like basketball practice, like yeah, we was off a few days, but now it's time to get back into that mode because season's right around the corner.
Taja, it's let's shift it to basketball, and let's talk about what Coach Tsipis has brought, the energy and the experience that he brings. You guys are being a part of a rebuild, which is exciting if you have the right attitude about it, right? So tell me a little bit about how you're feeling about being with Coach Tsipis and helping him rebuild alongside him rebuilding what this program is going to look like this year.
Honestly, how I'm feeling really good about the new build up and everything about Coach Tip and what he has brought. I feel like he has brought a new culture where he pushes us this past our limits, and he hold us like accountable for everything that we do. And I think that as like time goes, it's gonna I feel like we're gonna get better as a team. It's yeah, it's
Yeah, I mean, it's repetition, it's execution, it's discipline. It's what you've been doing your whole life from a basketball standpoint, right? What makes it so much fun to be with this group, Chelsea?
I think what makes it more fun and everything, because for one, this is my last year of eligibility, and for two, like being on the call with Coach Sip back in like April and just listening to like his plans and everything, it was real easy to buy in literally over the phone. Like it was literally that easy. And for him to bring in like Coach Danny, Coach C, and Coach Sid, like bringing in those type of coaches who pushing you more than Coach Sip is at times, it makes you want to buy in. And then also like we have like a few returners and then few like newcomers, and everybody wants to win. Like of course like we wasn't able to like see that in like recent years, but like now we have the formula to be great. It's all about us
using
us using it and just being great.
Tyja, what does that look like? What is Chelsea describing about what looks great about what you're doing on the floor? Do you explain it to us so we know it when we see it?
Honestly, just running in transition and just like passing the ball, playing at a faster speed, a better speed, and just like being very like I would say I don't know the word for it. I'm sorry. It's just like being very smart with the ball and just like focusing on the little things. Yes, and he's
Okay.
very like particular about little things, which I really like.
So I know Coach Tsipis for a long time, and I know how good he is. I know how he thinks the game. I know how much he loves to coach. And I also know how much he loves seeing his jersey hanging on the back wall with the one on it. How about that detail right there? What do you got to say about that?
It look good.
It does look
looks good. It looks
The
good.
purple looks really good, honestly.
What do you think you guys can bargain Coach Tsipis for to be able to get your jerseys in a frame hanging on his wall?
Probably a foam ball because he
I
definitely
think
needs.
I think some shoes, honestly.
Oh
some
yes,
shoes.
shoes.
I think some
That's
shoes.
definitely.
Well, I was thinking about maybe a double-double or, maybe a positive assist turnover ratio, like 3-to-1, maybe something like that you could wheel and deal with.
Yes.
That
What
would work
about
too,
that?
though.
Yes.
That would work.
Chelsea, if you're going to describe your game, tell me what it looks like when you're playing at your best.
Playing at my best is honestly just getting my teammates going. Obviously, like my teammates helping me get going. I've always been able to like shoot the ball and stuff like that, and my teammates really help me get to my spots. The best is when like I'm smiling, I'm happy, like kind of turned up a little bit, but communicating over like because we always give high fives. Like Coach Sip is really big on touches, but like I give touches. Like I'd be like, "Let's go!" Like and they'd be like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "Sorry, my fault. I'm a little happy," but honestly, like just keep just going, making the right reads, even if it's like small details of like making an extra pass, like that gets me going.
To be honest with you, based on everything that you guys have been through recently, you look like two really happy kids, and for that.
Yes.
That is kind of infectious attitude that people enjoy watching about our game, right? When people look like they're having fun doing what they love doing. How about for you, Tyja? Chelsea's got an infectious attitude. She's got a big smile. She's the top returning scorer. How are you going to help her put some points on the board this year?
Getting open center screens, just cheering on my teammates when I can, and just uplifting them to just keep them going and just keep them like running the floor and just like having a winning spirit.
Well, you both definitely have a winning spirit about you, and we're so glad that you could join us on the SoCon preview show. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right.